Let's take a minute to talk about safety. Depending on how well the company you work for is funded and set up, you may or may not have a safety officer in your ranks. Either way, you'll most likely be responsible for a good portion of the daily safety monitoring on your project, and you certainly need to set a good example for the customer and your own employees. The days of the Wild West have come and gone. Today, safety is a line item in the budget, and many general contractors won't even hire subcontractors without checking their safety record and being impressed by it. Contractors with excessive accidents pay higher insurance premiums, and this can make it difficult for them to compete with contractors who have better safety records. Safety is important, and as a foreman, it is your responsibility to make sure all of your workers practice safe work habits, to maintain a good safety record for the company in order to help them compete in their market. I've been through 2 surprise OSHA inspections in my lifetime. By the time the OSHA inspector enters your work site and announces themselves, your goose is already cooked. Before entering, they will find a position or positions outside the job site with a good view of the project and film the site. Chances are that during this initial surveillance, they will discover at least one violation. That is their invitation to visit your site. On my first surprise inspection in 1997, the OSHA inspector filmed men accessing a second-level roof via a stepladder leaned against the wall. Not only is that not acceptable, but the ladder did not extend 3 feet above the roof. I was the electrical foreman on the project and just happened to be in the main construction office trailer with the general contractor superintendent when the OSHA inspector entered and announced himself. We both had designated safety representatives that we were supposed to call in the case of an OSHA inspection. We both called them. Both responded. The superintendent was exceptionally nervous. Other construction projects in our area had been hit that year, and all were fine. So we were well aware of this possibility. We asked for a courtesy inspection, and the superintendent asked if I would accompany the inspector on his inspection of the site. I agreed. As we exited the trailer, men were scrambling about the site. They were rolling up extension cords, parking equipment, and basically shutting the site down. By now, the inspector had already told me that he had filmed the site and the workers accessing the roof via the stepladder. It was almost embarrassing to see the site being shut down, and it felt like a huge admission of guilt for other things that were not even violations. The inspector acknowledged the activity and told me again that he had already filmed the site and that I could tell them to stop putting things away. I acted as confident as possible and did my best to settle the site down. The inspection actually went very well. Even though we had violated the rules by accessing the roof via a stepladder leaned against the wall, there was also a lot that we were doing right. As we walked, he picked out certain items and discussed them with me, like testing GFI receptacles at the temporary power center. He talked with some of the workers still inside the building and gave some good tips on how we could improve our site even beyond the minimum requirements that we were already meeting. I asked questions and gained as much insight as I could. As he concluded his walk through the site, I asked him if he would visit my own trailer and check out my company safety plan. My trailer was a 16-foot enclosed trailer that we stored our tools in, with a plywood desk and plan table in the front. Across from the plan table were some plywood shelves, where I built the shrine. Since we knew OSHA was in the area and was actively writing violations with stiff fines, I had decided to build a safety shrine and diligently maintain it. My shrine included an Osha poster, our company safety plan, a binder with MSDS sheets for all of our company chemical products, signed weekly safety meeting topics, and weekly site safety inspections. I wanted that to be the last thing he saw before he wrote any violations. I wanted him to know that we were making a big effort to be compliant, especially since the general contractor had nothing to offer. He critiqued me on my MSDS binder, which contained every chemical my company had ever used. While he liked that I had sheets for so many chemicals, he advised me that it would be much more helpful in an emergency situation if I would pick out the chemicals that were actually on site and organize them in alphabetical order in the front of the binder. That way workers could find the chemical they likely came in contact with quickly and easily. Since then, I've always done this. He wrapped things up by telling the superintendent that I really had my shit together and that he was not going to write any violations. I am convinced that my safety shrine is what ultimately swayed his opinion on whether to fine us or not. Since that time, I've added a couple of items to my shrine, including equipment pre-operation checkoff sheets and job hazard analysis. My second surprise inspection in 2013 went much the same way. An OSHA inspector was passing through our area on the way to a meeting on an accidental death that had happened recently. He decided to stop at the store next door to our site to pick something up on the way, and as he sat in his car in the parking lot, he filmed a worker transferring from a snorkel lift to the roof. While he was wearing fall protection and was attached by a lanyard, he only had one lanyard and disconnected from the lift, then reconnected at the roof, instead of using two lanyards for the transfer so he could stay connected during the transfer. He came on site asking to speak to the person in charge of the site and was directed to me in my office. We were remodeling a mall that had been hit by a tornado, and I was hired to manage the site as the superintendent for the owner. After introducing himself and showing me his video, he immediately requested to see my safety plan. Boy, was he surprised. This was a small town in the Midwest, and I had no reason to believe OSHA would be anywhere in the area, but I did not let down my guard. On a table next to my plan table, neatly organized, was every document he could ever want to see. I could literally feel his level of stress and irritation dissipate as he went through my documents. Next, we went out to the front of the building where the workers were building a new roof and facade so that he could address them. He singled out the worker who had made the illegal transfer and tried to let him know what he had done wrong and how he should have done it. This worker, to my horror, became very combative. He worked for a subcontractor on site and quickly irritated the inspector. Here I had impressed him, settled him down, and this jackass was arguing with him. It was obvious to me at this point that the inspector only wanted to inform him of the correct methods so that he could work safely in the future, and this guy was pushing his buttons. I have no idea why he didn't write that contractor a violation right on the spot. But after warning the worker that he would if he didn't settle down, the inspector gave them all some tips, followed by some real-world incidents where he had investigated accidents of workers who had died and the impact that it had had on their families. Then he said goodbye and left. It is my opinion, based on these two experiences, that these OSHA inspectors are more concerned with educating workers and saving lives than they are with writing violations. Both were decent guys, although the second one seemed really angry when he first introduced himself. Again, I'm convinced that if I had not had my shrine up to date and well organized, he would have written a violation. I really believe that if you can show them that safety is a priority for you and that you're making serious efforts to protect your workers, they will support that effort by giving good insight and criticism instead of violations and fines. You need to build and maintain a shrine on every project, no matter how small. Not only will this protect you in case of a surprise OSHA visit, it will impress your company and your customer. Remember, our number one goal is to boost your income and get you recognized as the top foreman in your company. Taking safety seriously and making sure that your workers do as well is part of that process. Constantly survey the site for unsafe acts and educate workers on correct practices. Remind them to wear and use their personal protective equipment. If you acquire a reputation as a foreman who has numerous accidents in your past, your career as a foreman will be a short one. Don't let that happen. Let's go over the items your shrine should include. Osha Poster. The OSHA workplace poster needs to be posted wherever employees report for work. If your crew meets at the job site, then you need to post one there. Some states also have workplace posters, so you need to search on the internet to see if your state requires their own poster, and if so, post that as well. If you have workers who speak a language other than English, you can download a poster in their native language as well. Don't risk getting a fine by neglecting to post this. Safety plan. Your company's safety plan. Every company should have a safety plan. If your company does, make sure you get a copy for your shrine. If your company doesn't have a safety plan, you should create one. There are templates online, and if needed, I can provide you with a template. Just ask. There are a lot of parts to a good safety plan, and you need to be sure they are accurate, as you will be making a document that will represent your company in case of an OSHA inspection. It's okay to do the heavy lifting and put the document together, but never implement it until it is reviewed and approved by the company owner. If possible, make sure every employee on your site receives a copy, understands it completely, and abides by it. I generally have a meeting and go over it with every employee on site before I begin my project. Then, as new employees come on site, I have them read it and go over it with them before I release them to work on site. If your company is small and does not have a good formal safety plan in place, this alone should get you some solid recognition. Be sure to show your records to your project manager and the contractor you work for if they visit your site. Let them see that you have the company interest protected by a good and current safety system. Weekly safety meetings. Personally, I like to have these meetings first thing Monday morning. Workers involve themselves in a diverse array of activities on the weekend, which distracts them from safe work practices. I like to get their minds right back on safety Monday morning before I let them enter the site and resume work. This also gives you the opportunity to look them in the eye and evaluate their frame of mind. It is not uncommon for employees to stay out late at night on weekends and to consume alcohol. So you want to be on guard for workers who look overtired or still hampered by the effects of alcohol. It is your responsibility to identify any individuals who may not be in condition to work and remove them from the site until they are. Make sure everyone pays attention and really stress to them that they are beginning a new work week and it is time to get their minds back on their work and practice safe work habits. These people count on their work to support their families. If they get injured and cannot work, they will suffer financially. I like to tell people that it used to be that a guy could make a good living off of workman's comp, but that isn't the case anymore. In about 2004, I stretched my bicep tendon at work and had to have it repaired. I had 3 surgeries before they finally got it right, and I believe workman's comp paid about 80% of my normal wage. Imagine if you had to take a 20% pay cut right now. How would that affect you? That was tough, not to mention the boredom and aggravation of being laid up when I would have rather been working. When it was all over, they called me to say that they were ready to settle my case and offered me $400 for all of my pain, suffering, and reduced strength in my arm. I told them no thanks. I think I'll just let you own this arm for the rest of my life. You need to protect your workers and make sure they follow safe work practices. If someone is seriously injured on your site and OSHA finds that safe practices and/or company procedures were not followed, you could personally be held accountable up to including fines. It is important, as the lead company representative on site, that you do everything you can to ensure that the site is safe. Don't ever ask anyone to knowingly violate an OSHA rule or a company rule. It's just not worth it. Make sure everyone signs the weekly safety report. Scan them to a file and store the hard copies in a binder, which will become part of your safety shrine. JHAs. JHA, in case you don't know, stands for Job Hazard Analysis. I create my own JHA forms from a template I found online. This is a good example below if your company doesn't have one. There are free templates online if you search for them, or specific JHAs can be purchased. This is a good example of what you need. Job hazard analysis is a task-specific safety form that addresses all of the common hazards that you might encounter for a specific task, like pulling wire, for example, and the methods you should employ to avoid them. Most companies are using them these days, and if your company doesn't, you might want to start the practice. It is just a way to make everyone aware of the hazards they may encounter before starting the work and how to avoid them. If you do have an accident on your site and you can produce a signed copy of one of these little gems, it will go a long way towards showing the commitment to safety that you and your company are making. It will also win the attention of even the most irritable OSHA inspector. So I'm all for using them. They are a little tedious to build, but once you've gone through one project using them, you should have the templates for all future projects. When you create them, always store an unsigned copy in a file of templates for future use. Scan all signed copies to a file and place all hard copies in a binder to include in your safety shrine. Weekly site inspection reports. Weekly site inspection forms are inspection checkoff sheets that verify common relevant safety issues on site are taken care of. Filling these out weekly goes a long way towards proving that you are proactive about safety on your project. They help identify weaknesses in your job site safety, and having them filled out and filed in your shrine will win certain points in case of an OSHA inspection. Make sure you fill them out. If you notice any violations, be quick to correct them or report them to the general contractor via written record, like an email. No reason to be in their face about it. Just say, hey, I was inspecting the work site today and noticed that. List the issue and just say, I knew you would want to be aware of it, so I thought I would send you a quick email. If it is their issue, they don't correct it, and it comes up through an accident or OSHA inspection, you have a written record that you asked for it to be corrected. Weekly inspection forms are available online for free or for purchase. Hazardous communication plan. There are 5 elements to the hazardous communication standard. They are chemical inventory, written program, labels, material safety data sheets, and training. The hazardous communication plan is included in the safety plan. It is mainly a way of documenting what chemicals an employee may come in contact with and a way of clearly communicating those dangers to the employee. MSDS or SDS sheets are part of that method of communication. If an employee happens to be exposed to chemicals on site in a harmful manner, the SDS sheet tells the employee what the best emergency medical treatment is. So it is very important to have these SDS sheets readily available on site. SDS sheets are readily available online. I generally send one of my apprentices around with their cell phone to photograph all of the chemicals he or she finds on site and text them to me. Then I look them up online, find the SDS sheet for them, and print them out to place in the SDS binder. Many companies have SDS binders that include every chemical that they ever used. If your company gives you one of these, send an apprentice around to take pictures of all the chemicals on site. Make sure you send the apprentice into the subcontractor trailers and toolboxes as well. Pull these from the binder, place 2 dividers in the binder labeled in use on site and not in use on site. Place the ones in use on site behind the tab in alphabetical order and leave the rest behind the tab not in use on site. Do your best to add relevant sheets as new chemicals are brought on site and periodically send that apprentice back around to try to capture anything that might have been missed. Equipment pre-operation check sheets. You need to make sure your operators are doing their pre-operation check on their equipment every day before use, and this needs to be documented. I have found the books with carbon copies to be the best option here. I put one booklet on each piece of equipment. That way they are right there so the operator can do their check prior to using the equipment. Someone needs to collect the hard copies every day and place them in a binder at the shrine. And the carbon copies stay on the equipment for quick reference. You have to purchase them, so you'll have to speak to your company about that. You can find templates online to print out and use instead if necessary. I'll leave the final plan to your safety director, but if you do this much, you should fare well. Whatever the final plan looks like, make sure it is current and up to date always. If you will do this much, organize it into separate binders and keep them current, you will go a long way towards demonstrating that safety is important to you and your company. Place all binders in one area where they can be quickly accessed in case of an inspection. It is very unnerving to have an OSHA inspector show up at your site. It will take a lot of stress off and permit you time to gather your thoughts if you can lead the inspector to a table and let them look through your safety program while you mentally prepare for the inspection ahead. Don't forget that you do have the right to call your company representative to accompany the inspector on their inspection. They should wait up to about an hour for that person to arrive. If you are working as a subcontractor on the project, this safety shrine might just be the factor that saves the entire site from violations, like mine did in 1997. Safety is a deep and important topic. I could probably write a book on important tips that you need to know. I've given you enough to protect yourself and your company well, but consider it just an introduction. As an electrical foreman, you need to play a huge role in your company's safety program. Take online courses and learn as much as you can. At a minimum, you should have an OSHA 30 certificate. Many employers require OSHA 30 training now. If, during the course of your project, special training would be beneficial, like scaffold training, arc flash, or confined space, get online and get that certification. This will help demonstrate your commitment to safety. If someone's injured on your project under your supervision, you could possibly be held accountable by OSHA. Make sure you understand OSHA safety requirements and your role in them.